Welcome to Sikorski's Think Abouts, and I'm your host, Laura Sikorski. My guests and I share our operations and technology expertise to help you provide outstanding customer service and customer experiences. Today, our guest is John Goodman, and he's coming to us via Skype from Alexandria, Virginia. John is Vice Chairman of Customer Care Measurement and Consulting. And we were chatting before the show and find that we have mutual friends, particularly Francia Smith, who both of us worked for in the United States Postal Service during the National Service Center project. John is an author of Strategic Customer Service, which was published in May 2009 by the American Management Association. He has just published his latest book, Customer Experience 3.0, in July. John has done over 1,000 customer service studies, ranging from complaint handling in the government and business, which was sponsored by the White House, studies on word of mouth, bottom line, impact of consumer education, and scores of benchmarking on customer service, complaint handling, voice of the customer processes. He's taught at Wharton Business School Executive Ed program, as well as Ohio State for their MBA program. He has appeared on Good Morning America, National Public Radio, the Discovery Channel, ABC Evening News, and many other shows. He has over 800 clients, and if I go on and on, we're not going to have time to talk to John this morning. So with that, John, welcome.
Thank you very much.
And our topic this morning, I think, is going to be very interesting. It's customer experience. Let me step back. Making customer experience proactive, preventive, and engaging. So, John, I first would like to talk a little bit about why Customer Experience 3.0. It reminds me of the releases, that Microsoft and everybody else has out there.
Well, that's exactly correct in this case, because in the 70s, when we first started doing this under the White House project, it was complaint handling. Then it evolved into customer experience, and then a guy named Joe Pine wrote a book, Customer Experience, and actually coined the term in the 90s. But Joe Pine's take on customer experience was the Nordstrom story, which was the lady returned 2 tires to Nordstrom's to get her money back, and wowing customers was really customer experience 1.0. Now, my problem with the Nordstrom story is not only is it used to motivate customer service people, but also finance people have heard that story, and they say, on the face of it, that's ridiculous. Nordstrom's didn't even sell tires, so why are they giving her money back? Well, the theory was the customer's always right. So that was Customer Experience 1.0. Customer Experience 2.0 was introduced by IBM in the early 2000s when they came up with CRM systems, and they said you can now tailor the customer experience and the offering to the customer using CRM systems. Well, I then came up with Customer Experience 3.0, which is across the entire customer experience, end to end, and it's being proactive and anticipatory and preventive, and when appropriate, engaging. And I'll come back to the when appropriate, because we find that it isn't always appropriate to try and connect with the customer.
Now, are we going to learn about another customer experience name again? I mean, you talked just now about CRM, and everybody has trouble calling customer service what it is, and that's making the customer happy. And, every few years we get a new name. Do you think customer experience is going to stay for a while, or are we going to get customer engaging, or, what's your gut feeling on that?
Well, I think customer experience, because it is such a broad term, probably is going to be around for a while. There will be technical terms such as we've gone from multi-channel to omni-channel, which I think is sort of silly.
It is totally silly.
Yes, because it's basically serving the customer via whatever channel they're looking for. But I think customer experience, because it's broad enough, is probably going to be around for a while.
Well, okay. Well, that's good. That's good. So we don't have to re-engineer, again, every word and all the articles that you and I both have written. There's some people are saying that customer service is actually worse than it was 20 years ago. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely, and our studies actually show that. We did the original White House study that was a cross-section survey of the U.S. population in 1976 and sort of had a benchmark level of problems and resolution. And since 2000, CCMC, Customer Care Measurement and Consulting, has actually replicated that study 6 times, and we call it the National Rage Study, which is what makes people so angry they start swearing at companies. And what we have actually found is that satisfaction now is lower than in 1976. And the reason for this is, there are a couple of reasons. One, I think expectations have increased, but the number of serious problems with customers has also increased, and we're finding that companies are spending lots of money, billions of dollars, in all the wrong places. They're aggressively soliciting complaints and using surveys, but the actual level of resolution is actually worse. And the other fly in the ointment is that we found in the 70s that when somebody complained, even if they weren't satisfied, their loyalty went up because at least they were able to vent. Now we're finding that if you solicit complaints and don't completely solve the problem, you actually end up with a much more dissatisfied, disloyal customer than had they not complained at all. So if anything, companies are spending billions and billions of dollars making the mess worse.
You know, and I totally agree with you. I find that I would rather be able to talk to a rep, get my business done in 30 seconds or a minute. And I think our own industry, the technology, what's happened is that we made it so difficult for our customers to reach us. And I think that causes an increase in dissatisfaction. Then, of course, in stateside, when we outsourced overseas and we offshored, that, of course, you know, got the customers all bent out of shape, and rightfully so, I myself included. And, you know, and I'm wondering, you know, do companies today need to take a deep breath, step back, and get back to basics? Get back to training their customer service reps, talk with a smile. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that there really are 2 or 3 fundamental issues. Number one, we do find with millennials, and in fact a lot of older people like me with gray hair, we would like to self-service on the simple stuff. And most websites are the fundamental problem in that almost every website is 90%, the homepage is 90% marketing and 10% service, when in fact, if you look at who's visiting the website, it's 80% existing customers trying to get something done. So literally the homepage of most websites is exactly opposite oriented from what it should be. We also find that companies are afraid to talk about problems. We find one of the best things is to have the top 5 issues people are calling you about on the home page, because they're coming to get the answer to that, and we find most of the world is willing to self-service. But to your point, we find that if I can't find a simple answer, then I want to be able to talk to you via chat, email, or click on a call me button and get called right away. And we're finding that most organizations are saying, oh, let's use technology as a barrier to discourage customers from contacting. But what we find is that the loyalty and negative word of mouth from customers who don't find it easy to contact you is doing a lot more damage. And the reason why companies tolerate this is it's the no news is not good news. All these unhappy customers simply aren't complaining. They're going somewhere else and spreading a lot of negative.
Absolutely. They're going to the competition. Well, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back in a moment. But I'm going to ask, this is a term that is outstanding and I have no idea what it means. But you talk about psychic pizza. So we're going to learn a little bit about that. We'll be right back, folks.
Hi, I'm Tim Stead. I'm from Star Communications. We're a marketing support company. And if you need help with your next marketing project, please call 273-1900, or you can go to our website, starcommunications.us.
Well, Well, welcome back, and with me this morning is John Goodman, who is the Vice Chairman of the Customer Care Measurement and Consulting Company out of Alexandria, Virginia. Before the break, I want to know a little bit about a term, psychic pizza, and what does that all have to do with customer experience?
Well, actually, psychic pizza is my term for being proactive, anticipatory, and preventive. And the basic theory is that if I can ring your doorbell and say, here is the pizza you were about to order, and anticipate your next need, I dazzle your socks off, plus I dramatically cut my service expense. And so the basic theory here is that I believe most organizations know what the customer issue is going to be before the customer does. Good example is FedEx. FedEx knows 10 hours before you do that the package isn't going to arrive because it missed a flight in Memphis. Then they get the frantic phone call. Then 2 days later, they do the satisfaction survey. Now, we actually have an article that says stop doing surveys to get answers to questions you already know. But my basic point is that FedEx has operational data that says 10 hours in advance what the next problem or question or phone call from that customer is going to be. Now, the granddaddy organization who's been doing this probably the longest is Amazon. They basically figured out many, many years ago that if you order the book, your next question is going to be, when are you going to ship it? When am I going to get it? And they automatically send you an email saying that we're going to ship it on Tuesday, you should get it on Thursday. So that's really what psychic
You know,
is.
and it's a great term. I usually use be proactive with your customers. If you know something's is damaged and you're not going to get it out to the customer, call the customer, email the customer, do whatever method of channel that the customer likes to communicate with you and get it done. It's not a big deal. You know the answer already, right?
Yeah, and by the way, I would make one observation that there are so many opportunities in most organizations to deliver psychic pizza that it has to be automated. You could never have enough phone calls made, and what we actually find is for a notification like that, we find most people don't need the warm, fuzzy phone call. What they need is the information, but then if they're upset or oh, well, I need to do something else in that case, then you have to have a must-answer phone line that they can immediately click on.
Get the answer, absolutely. Now, you say that most companies blame poor customer service on the front line. Those poor agents, you know, they seem to get the brunt of everything. And I think I agree with you, you know, that they're not the problem.
Yeah, there's a well-known consulting firm who will go nameless, who has published data that says, or at least a statement that says 86% of all customers are lost due to poor employee attitude. We disagree with that completely. We think the maximum 10 to 20% of dissatisfaction is caused by the frontline employee not following policy. In most cases, if the customer is dissatisfied after the interaction with Mary Lou, the frontline rep, more than likely Mary Lou told that customer exactly what she was supposed to tell the customer, but that didn't make the customer happy. That ain't her fault. That's management's fault.
Right.
And so we basically find that employees maximum 20% cause dissatisfaction. We find the customer causes another 20 to 30%, and we can talk more about that. But we find that 60% of all dissatisfaction is broken processes, products that are designed to have unpleasant surprises built into them, and marketing and sales setting incorrect expectations.
Totally agree. And I also think, I read an article recently, and I wish I could remember to quote the person correctly, but that agents sometimes, in order to appease the customer, just give too much information. And rather than trying to calm the customer, they relate all the nonsense that's behind the scenes, and it only further frustrates the customer.
Well, and in fact, one of the reasons why the agents do that is number one, the compliance and legal people say, oh, you need to stick all these paragraphs in.
Right.
And number two, there is probably a call quality monitoring form that says for this issue, you must use this script or get these points in. Mm-hmm. When in fact, we find, and you're alluding to this, that the first thing you need to do is calm the customer down, because when customers are upset, the blood has drained from their brain and they literally are semi-incoherent. And if you've ever had an argument with somebody and then 10 minutes later said, well, why didn't I say this and such? The reason is you weren't thinking clearly. So we find one of the best things when a customer is sort of frothing at the mouth is to say, what would you like me to do? And that simple question moves them from the emotional side of their brain back to the intelligent side of the brain. And it's, ooh, yeah, what do I want? And it sort of slows them down. It then gives you an opportunity to, we always say, fix the customer, then fix the problem.
Right. And that's a really way to diffuse a customer. And,
Yes,
I
yes.
know a lot of times I'll teach in telephone etiquette the diffusion techniques. There are words that you can use. And unfortunately, sometimes customer reps aren't taught how to do that. You alluded earlier about metrics, the Net Promoter Score, and, every time you go somewhere, they, the receipt says, call me, I want to know how your experience was. Why aren't companies being more successful in improving their quality with all these surveys that are out there? Okay, I don't know if you heard the question. Okay, John, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
and your question was pretty muddled from an audio perspective.
Okay, what I'm trying to get to is the satisfaction metrics that are out there.
Yep.
How come quality isn't improving if the customer or if the companies are getting all of this data?
Well, I think the companies have two or three basic problems, and they're interrelated. Number one is almost all satisfaction measurement and quality monitoring is aimed at, let's improve Mary Lou, and if we can get Mary Lou to adhere to the script better, life will be beautiful. In fact, we find the big problem is that the script that Mary Lou is being given, the level of empowerment Mary Lou is being given, and the access to information. If you have a reasonably bright rep who is given all the necessary information and the empowerment, they can be very, very successful. Now, the new technology that's coming in, the enterprise feedback mechanisms that people are selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars, I think are part of the problem, in that they are, almost all of their analytical output is focused on rank ordering all the different representatives and the supervisors, when in fact the real analysis has to be for this kind of an issue, for a failed alternator on the car, do we have a response rule that is going to make the customer happy? And so it's that much more strategic issue of, are our response rules effective, and are we providing the reps the necessary information and empowerment? And most satisfaction surveys and call quality monitoring processes are not looking at those two questions, because that's a much more complicated question. Fixes outside the contact center, I'll say on occasion, is lazy and worries about fixing Mary Lou as opposed to fixing the rest of the company.
Well, John, we are just about out of time. So normally at the end of the show, I ask our guests if you could give our audience two takeaways, two think-abouts about the customer experience, making the customer experience proactive, preventive, and engaging. What would, and we have to be concise, what would those two things be?
I think the first would be do an analysis of satisfaction by type of issue and identify the two issues where even your best reps end up with a dissatisfied customer. That will tell you where you have broken response rules or processes. Secondly, I would get the chief financial officer involved by quantifying the damage done due to dissatisfied customers and work with them to develop a business case that conservatively estimates the amount of money the company is leaving on the table due to the existing status quo.
And that is a perfect ending. Folks, you've got to get your finance people involved, because unless you can share the loss of revenue that you are experiencing because of dissatisfaction, you have to get that done, folks. So I just want to thank John. To reach John Goodman, his Twitter account is at jgoodman888. His email is jgoodman@customercaremc.com. His office number, 703-823-9540. And certainly to reach me, Twitter is at Laura Sikorski, and my cell 624-634-6650. And with that, I also want to thank Corinne Caro, who is the founder and CEO of the Daily Blue and the Blue Chip Marketing. And the Daily Blue is sponsoring our TV network this morning, and their phone number is 631-761-9223. And with that, thank you so much for clicking in, and have a perfect rest of the day.